certainly super close, and it was neck and neck a lot of the game, but pulling ahead. I mean, they lost the early game. The Clinks was about, what, nearly 2,000 net worth behind the Slark. He was about, 30 last hits behind at one point. So the Clinks here, though, he caught up in terms of kills, and that's how he does it. But once the team fight started going the way of pulling forehead, they did well. I think both teams had really good team fight, but yeah, this Tidehunter Ravage, the Doom, doing so much against Slark here. It's one hero you want to pick to counter the Slark.
Yeah, that really showed. He was prioritizing the Slark every fight. He was just like, oh, there's a Slark, time to drop my ultimate. And yeah, they managed to pick him off a couple of times with that. It's just so good against these heroes, which rely so much on their abilities to escape. So once you take that away from them, they just melt really. So in terms of like how the game went, the early game I feel went in the favor of Salt. They did manage to shut down the position one Clinks, like you were saying, and then sort of the mid lane fairly even, but Invoker probably taking that, and then obviously the Slark getting multiple kills on the Tidehunter. So I felt like they had the advantage at that point, but then it sort of petered out, and the game turned very passive, like you said. So do you think maybe they should have pressed an advantage a bit more?
What I think they should have done, because they closed down the Clinks, right, and that was really good that what they did. They were ahead. Pulling forehead was sort of, they were really desperate to try and come back from this. What they didn't do is they didn't capitalize on the shutdown of the Clinks. They didn't rotate anywhere. They stayed in lane, and they didn't go to the mid lane as much as they should have. They should have tried to close down Invoker, because as we know, Invoker was top net worth that entire game. He had the Midas. He was farming super well. He was winning last hits. And I think if they had maybe tried to kill the Invoker a couple of times, maybe get TA some farm quicker, because Shio was only, she was, sort of third, fourth, second highest net worth, but she was never really on top, and the TA, as a result, sort of didn't get to snowball, whereas the Invoker did, and I think that may have been a big factor in that, and I think they did well against the Doom in the jungle, but it was sort of, lots of even trades and things, lots of even trades.
Again, like we were talking about during the game, the Manta style pickup as well. I'm still not 100% if that was the right move. Maybe someone in chat can maybe give us a bit more insight of why that would be the pickup this game. I thought getting the BKB before that would have probably been the better option, and then maybe moving into a bit more damage, because they were putting out damage, but like we saw in that fight in the Radiant jungle, the Clinks was just standing there and fighting the TA, and that's not really something that he should be getting away with, honestly.
No, well, TA was doomed at that particular point, so TA was just, she was missing out a lot of things when you're doomed, but it was just, I think the team fights for pulling forehead were a lot more sort of, the positioning was really good. The Tidehunter always had great positioning. Doom was always in, right in the midst of it with the, he was dooming people, the Slark, the TA. Normally you'd think maybe they'd doom, the Disruptor or the Silencer, so they can't use their game-changing spells. But really, when you doom the TA, she has refraction charges to stop the damage, but she can't do anything. She can't meld. She's going to drop very quickly, and once you take out these hard-hitting heroes, there's no one to back up the damage of the Disruptor. You catch people out, but there's no backup. TA is obviously one of the hardest-hitting heroes they had on the team, and I think the decision of item builds may have been a little bit better for pulling forehead, and yeah, I think this Doom I think it was all came down to that mid lane in terms of Invoker not being closed down at all. Clinks got closed down. I think they did well there, but they should have capitalized and maybe looked for the Doom more or looked for the Invoker more. They had a really good aggressive support combo, but they didn't exactly use it enough, I think. They still did well, though.
Yeah, and I did want to give credit to pulling ahead for their great team fight cohesion. They just seem to be winning every single one of those team fights, even when they were even when we saw Salt rotate around behind them with that smoke, they picked off the Doom almost instantly. So it was technically a 4v5, and somehow they still managed to come back. And I don't think they even lost another hero that fight.
No. No, there were lots of even trades, but it was always, maybe a 2 for 3 trade or something going in the favor of Pulling Forehead. The Clinks just catching up with kills so well, and I think that the Tidehunter pick made a big difference. I think the Ogre Magi pick may not have offered as much after the early game. It was a very good pick early game, but he falls off so quickly, and he didn't offer anything.
So just before we go, any big any MVPs for your side? Who do you think pulled out the biggest plays this game?
It was possibly the Lion. The Lion actually had pretty much his own Ravage that game. He was hitting 3 heroes at once with the spike on about 3 different occasions. And whether he's MVP or not, he did some really awesome stuff. But I think, yeah, the Lion or the Disruptor just did really nice, made very good use of their spells. Disruptor catching out lots of heroes in the early to mid game, making very nice plays.
Yeah, I did want to say the Silencer and the Ogre, they were doing good things in the early game. I love their rotations together, and obviously keeping that Clinks down as well. They played really well from what I could see, but obviously as the game progressed, the Ogre sort of falls off in terms of how useful he is, and unless he's going to go for something like that Ags like we saw. So he's definitely more of an early game orientated support.
Yeah,
so it's a bit unfortunate there that it didn't work out for them.
He falls off when you don't really use him in terms of ganking enough. He did, obviously, like you said, early game he's fantastic, but once you start slowing down those ganks, once you start slowing down the battles, he's just not. He's not a farming support. He is quite a greedy support, but I think that in terms of, he just falls off when you're not making use of him. That's sort of where he falls off, and he offers quite a lot of disables, single target slow. But in terms of that, the passive gameplay I thought would definitely go the way of Salt Can't Mount Steel Beams, but it seemed to actually go the way of Pulling Forehead in the end, and they came out on the team fights. They came out on top, and the Doom just being a very, very good pick, I think, that game.
So with that, Pulling Forehead going to take the game there, and that's going to put them on a 6-win streak, so doing very well there. So this has been us at Clutch Studio for casting the Cybergamer Dota 2 Open Ladder. If you want to see more action like this, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Clutch Studio, and obviously on Twitch as well at Clutch NZ. Thanks for all the followers tonight, and the donations as well. We really appreciate it. So I've been Mads, and with me, Smoker the Top Loco. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks for the Twitch chat as well, guys. See you next time.
So